We are fighting for America's future, and we understand the opportunity we have before us to turn the page on the fear.
We are supporting Donald Trump because he promised to end war in the Middle East and Ukraine. The bloodshed has to stop all over the world, and I think this man can make that happen.
Guys, Kamala Harris continues to be in trouble with a lot of the key voter demographics that Democrats traditionally need to win an election. Last night, as you may know, Donald Trump went on the Joe Rogan Experience after Kamala continues to bleed support from young people, especially with young men, and Trump just knows how to continuously eat into those margins, right? But another demographic we've talked a lot about on this channel is Arab and Muslim voters who do not really make a huge difference statistically nationwide, but they do in a very key and pivotal swing state known as Michigan, right? You may have heard of that. And Kamala just got some more devastating news with that Arab vote that we'll tell you about here today. But first, folks, do us a big favor. If you're enjoying the content, be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And why should you subscribe? Because doing so goes a long way in ensuring we can keep bringing you these videos. We are trying to do our best to stand up to the machine, the mainstream media, the Democrat Party, the Kamala campaign, and widespread censorship with this grassroots content. And you can support for free just by hitting that red button down below. Now, before I tell you what happened today, I think it's important to provide the context, which is largely because of the Israel-Gaza conflict, but also I would argue maybe to some degree a lot of social and economic issues on top of that. The Arab population in the state of Michigan, we're talking about places like Dearborn, who reliably in the past have been, as you could imagine, pretty heavy Democrat voters, has entirely turned. I mean, the political support there has completely collapsed in comparison to where it traditionally needs to be. Take a listen to some of those recent polls and what they have found from these voters.
A new poll that specifically looks into the Arab American vote has some pretty shocking results, especially when you look at how the poll was represented in previous election cycles. So apparently, according to this poll that was done by the Arab American Institute, they found that Trump actually leads Kamala Harris by 1 point. Let's take a look at the graphic. Among those that they polled, 42% say that they plan to vote for Trump. 41% say that they plan to vote for Kamala Harris. But the numbers are actually worse when you specifically focus on likely voters, okay? Because when you look at likely voters, Trump leads Harris 46% to 42%. Only 79% of Democrats support Harris, while 89% of Republicans support Trump. And if you want to get a sense of how devastating this really is, well, in previous polls done by the same organization in partnership with Zogby, they found that the Democratic candidate typically beat the Republican candidate 2-1.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, not very good. And when you're talking about a swing state like Michigan, I mean, if those numbers remotely translate on election day, even if Kamala wins Arab voters by, let's say, like under 5 points, like it's basically tied, there is very little to no path to victory for her in that state. Again, they've been carrying Michigan off of taking Arab voters like 2-1. All of a sudden it's tied. That's a big issue. And you're talking about the state with the highest Arab population in the country, really the only place, like I said, where those voters make a key difference in the elections. That's a big deal, right? And how has Donald Trump responded to that? Well, take a look. Today at his rally in the state of Michigan, he just got a pretty big endorsement from numerous members of the Arab and Muslim community. And this is not something that you would expect to see, right? Muslim voters like rallying behind the Republicans. But it tells you a lot about how much our politics has changed, and largely because of this very effective messaging by Trump that he's going to be the peace candidate. That's how you build coalitional politics, right? Because the Jews, the Israel supporters, they kind of look at it and say, well, you know, look, the soft on terrorism record of the Biden administration allowed the attack on Israel on October 7th. But at the same time, you know, the Muslim voters or the kind of pro-Palestine people who feel like they don't like the way Israel has handled the war, you know, they think that Israel's the corrupt one in the situation. Well, Trump saying that he'll stop the war, kind of both sides find ways, find angles they can be happy with that. It's frankly pretty genius. But take a listen to what happened at his rally today.
As the president said, we just had a positive meeting with President Trump. We as Muslims stand with President Trump because he promises peace. He promises peace, not war. We are supporting Donald Trump because he promised to end war in the Middle East and Ukraine. The bloodshed has to stop all over the world, and I think this man can make that happen. I personally believe that God saved his life twice for a reason. I believe personally that God has saved his life for a reason, which is to save the lives of others. We support Donald J. Trump for his commitment to promoting family values and protecting our children's well-being, especially when it comes to curriculums and schools.
So already from that right there, a lot of interesting things to talk about. First of all, to see a bunch of Muslim leaders, community leaders on stage rallying for the Republican candidate. It's like we're living in the Twilight Zone. Like it's kind of a crazy change to our politics. But again, see, here's the thing is Trump is pro-Israel, right? Like nobody really denies that or argues that. But when you angle yourself not like a crazy war-hawking neocon, but really as the candidate of peace, right? You don't want these wars to be happening in the first place. You want to negotiate ways to bring an end to it. In many ways, you know, you can make both sides happy, right, in that process. And I think the messaging so far that, hey, you know, when they ask him, right, what are you going to do about these wars? First thing he says, it never would have happened when I was president. Both sides can find reasons to be happy with that answer, right? And that's kind of the power here of coalitional politics, how you can kind of unite both sides to basically agree on the same premise or at least the same candidate. When I think both Biden, when he was the candidate, and Kamala both did the opposite, right? They managed to piss off both people. The pro-Israel crowd thought that they were not pro-Israel enough and they were mad about her. And then the pro-Palestine crowd says, why are you allowing the genocide in Gaza? Well, you know, so that's kind of brilliant. But I also found it interesting, and this is something I believe on this channel. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys were even subscribed back then. But before this war broke out, I think this was like 2022, we covered this a little bit. And this is what's also important to understand. Yes, the Israel-Gaza issue is the primary reason a lot of Muslim or Arab voters are currently disaffected with this administration, but it is not the only reason. And this guy right here on the stage actually mentioned that. He talked about the curriculums being taught in the schools and sort of wokeness and the social radical leftism that you're seeing the Democrat Party push. And this is the issue when you import potential voters, which they thought they were doing in the state of Michigan and Minnesota and places like that, there starts to be a little bit of a conflict because what you find is, in general, right, people outside of the Western Hemisphere who immigrate here, for the most part, do not agree with the left-wing social agenda. When you talk to people outside of the West and you ask them, hey, what do you think about the idea that men can become women? They look at you like you're crazy, especially in the Muslim world, as you could imagine. And it's sort of a hilarious paradox because if you're so mad, if the Democrats are so pissed off about this fact, why did you support immigration policies that kind of encourage this type of mass migration to begin with. It's, again, highly ironic. But let's finish here by listening to the rest of what he has to say.
We are with President Trump because we want a strong economy. Don't you want that? We are with President Trump to make America great again through peace and justice for all. Lastly, Michiganders, I have 2 predictions for you for the next 6 months. Are you ready? Number 1, the Detroit Lions will win the Super Bowl. Ready for the second prediction? I can't hear you. Are you ready? The second prediction is Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States of America.
This issue is going to spell trouble for Democrats in Michigan, because Michigan, largely because of that Arab population, of those 3 Rust Belt states, right? Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, these are the swing places in the Midwest. Democrats have the biggest advantage in Michigan. Michigan is generally the bluest of those 3 states. Gretchen Whitmer obviously is the governor there. But if you lose that Arab population by huge margins, which not just by the fact that, they're speaking at the rally, but this has happened in the polls. You're seeing pretty strong evidence of this. You saw this also in the 2024 Democrat primary, where over 100,000 people voted uncommitted as a protest against Joe Biden because of Israel-Gaza. Yeah, you have a problem on your hands, and very hilariously, at the exact same time that this was happening in Michigan, Kamala Harris got heckled at her rally by one of those infamous Palestine protesters. That's right, they are back.
We are fighting for America's future, and we understand the opportunity we have before us to turn the page on the fear
Yeah, so you could hear pretty clearly in that video, he's saying no more Gaza war, free Palestine. I'm sure the Kamala campaign is just going to say that was a Trump supporter. It's actually a right-wing insurrectionist Christian nationalist who was protesting and interrupting the rally. No, these are one of the Palestine activists that was there. And again, this was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So you want evidence that, hey, this issue is impacting the election. You have the Arab leaders going out endorsing Trump on stage. You have the Palestine protester on the same exact day screaming her down at the rally. You have the 2024 primary in this state. And you also, by the way, have the polling we showed you in the beginning of this video. Yeah, she might have a problem on her hands. And isn't that the great irony that, Democrats encouraged a lot of immigration from the Middle East, and they thought, okay, this is permanent political control in a state like Michigan. And then it backfires because, I don't know, you apparently can't keep them happy through your own policies. It's funny to see. I don't know. That said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.